session for this special meeting. We're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Drew. All please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, sorry guys.
Sure.
Please, Lord, give us grace and give us guidance on decision-making, and thank you for everything you've given us in this time of Los and hopefully the world can give us peace.
Amen.
All right, now is the time and place for public communications.
I hear noise. What was it?
Don't see any. We're going to close public comments. Is it gone? Oh, yes, it's gone.
You're good
Thank you.
now.
All right, city manager, nothing to follow up on there. Staff presentations. Okay, I see Ally Mancini to present on item 1, amended joint use agreements with El Segundo Unified School District.
Yes. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor Boyles and members of the City Council. This afternoon, I'm before you to present a proposed joint use agreement with the El Segundo Unified School District. To give a recent history of the joint use agreement renewal, I have shared on the slide above a bullet point list of significant actions from the past year. So the most recent joint use agreement expired on the 1st of September of this year. Staff came and presented a proposed amendment to the joint use agreement at the council meeting on September 19th. At that meeting, City Council directed staff to extend the current agreement while trying to gain consensus on a couple of the items in the proposed amendment. City staff then met with the City School Affairs Subcommittee, actually on 2 occasions, on the 11th of October and I believe the 19th of October. So we've had 2 discussions with the City School Affairs Subcommittee. And the City School Affairs Subcommittee proposed a couple of additional changes to the document for council to consider for approval, and I'll go over those. On this slide here, if you recall, these are the 3 items that the district and the city had already agreed upon as being beneficial additions to the language in the contract. So item 1 being the term of contract would be 7 years with a reopener at 4 years, and that was a change from the 10 years that was originally proposed. Also, the district and city staff agreed to have biannual meetings with administrators, so it would be myself and Kim Linz from the district twice per year to go over the scheduling and to talk about needs and figure out how we can best fit everybody into that. And then finally, the district has agreed to a pro rata cost share. So if there's one-time improvements to equipment that is beneficial for student use and our own programs, then they would be willing to negotiate a cost share on those items. So after the City School Affairs Subcommittee, there were a couple of changes proposed, and I'll go through those here. They're also listed in your what I'm now calling the blue line document because the changes are made in blue. So item number 1 in section D, it's simply just an acknowledgement of the city's ownership of the lights on Richmond Field. And so it says the city also operates and maintains lighting on the property adjacent to the Richmond Street School located at 615 Richmond Street. The second adjustment there was to amend the language in section E. And again, this is sort of just verbiage changes. So we're striking certain improvements including, so that basically it says the amenities include the ball fields, the turf, et cetera. So that really is just kind of a verbiage change. And then adding, there's a place where we add Richmond Street School in as well. Then the third item was to remove the recitals K and L, which are the in-kind lists, and I think we actually had some initial discussion about that at the last council meeting, that we wanted to remove those from the document.
Can I interject here real quick?
Yes.
The in-kind did not include the actual hard costs that we have.
So the way the in-kind lists were presented, it included hard and soft costs in one document. So we presented one that had a total of $868 or some $1,000, and then the district also provided one.
I mean,
Those were in the
I
last.
understood the in-kind because it's like, hey, what if is like, what you could potentially get if this happens, but we do have hard costs that come out of the general fund that just public would need it. I mean, that's, it's as far as transparency goes. So I think that's just basically crossing guards and school
The
resource officer,
SROs,
right?
yes.
Okay, so is that not listed in the agreement at all? Because in the end, that cost goes up every year. Because as contracts come up, as, you know, all of that goes up, that's just a hard cost.
Yeah, so I think it would be just for the council to direct staff, if you wanted the hard costs listed in as some sort of attachment, we could do that. It was just all captured before in a document that was called in-kind list, if that makes sense.
And
So
it's part of the public record now, because it was wasn't it part of our materials?
it
for
was
the
part of
council
the previous report, correct. Okay. Any questions on any of these items? No? Okay, so moving on to the next change was to amend language in section 3 as follows. So we are, the proposed change is to amend the language from city will have priority over non-school programs to read city will have priority over non-district programs. And then probably the most significant change is in that same section 3, where we are proposing to add the language, district will add the high school practice field, the new middle school gym, outdoor basketball courts in the field to the city's scheduling software system for use by the city to the extent those facilities are not being used for district purposes. The district also agrees its facilities can be used by the city for emergency shelter upon a mutually acceptable written agreement. And the final sentence reads, both entities agree to schedule fields according to their respective policies. That concludes my updates.
Just one observation to Councilmember Drew's point. We had stricken under recitals, K and L.
Yes.
K and L were the ones that specified who was giving what.
Correct.
So if we just amended or modified those to just be, instead of the in-kind inclusive, but also just the hard costs associated with what each side is providing, we had it in there originally, that would, I think,
If the council,
alleviate his
yeah,
concern.
directs us to do that, we can do that.
The only thing is, hard costs are constantly moving, so you can refer to the program, like the crossing guards and the SROs, but listing an amount.
But no, in this amount, in here specifically, it says for fiscal year 2023, 2024.
Yeah, but this agreement's gonna be 7 years long.
Right, but it's talking about one particular year. I don't understand what the hesitation is about including it.
Because it was a snapshot in time, and the idea is this is not getting down into the weeds of you give me this and I get that, but just sets up a framework in which the city works with the district to figure out how can we best allocate these fields to meet the needs of the people who need to use the fields. So that's why we decided to get rid of that, and that was actually at the city council. And then at the subcommittee, we kind of took it as, okay, if we're the user group and we're trying to get access to these fields, how do we best accomplish that for the end user group? Acknowledging that they're volunteers, you know, they're on some board, it's probably the first time they've done it. And so that's why we changed this language to kind of be more expansive, so that now the city groups, our AOSO, our Little League, these field spaces, these new field spaces and the high school practice field were never before included in the, was it youth, what's the name of that commission?
Youth Sports Council.
Youth Sports Council. So when they would meet and try to divvy up the field space for all their programs, we're now adding in more district field space to the extent it's available to try to expand that for them. So I think that answers the question, but with.
Yeah, no, I was in that meeting. I get that part. I
Yeah.
just don't recall why we had stricken the dollar amounts. They are material. I don't understand. They're already in the public record as well. We've already included documents that
Sure.
have that language.
We did, but one would argue, you know, a crossing guard is there to make sure the kids are safe on city property. If we were to stop paying for crossing guards and some kid got hit, the city would be sued, not the district. We're responsible to get that kid safely to the campus, and once they're on campus, it's the district's responsibility.
So you're making the argument that because we don't believe in the validity of the numbers, we're not including them? I don't
No,
understand.
no.
Okay.
As I recall, the reason they were taken out was because it wasn't adding to what the intent of the agreement was, which is what is the framework that us as a council and those folks as a district can get together to allow staff to execute and actually deliver on allocating field space. And the in-kind and the use documents, while informative, didn't really add anything to that agreement.
I will beg to differ on one point, which is the original intent was to actually understand both parties' contributions. This is what started this. That was the catalyst for this, actually, is when we started talking about the joint use. It was, let's do an extensive analysis of both sides.
Sure.
So now that we know that, I just don't know, we already know the numbers, why we wouldn't include that in a document. It's already been provided, it's in public record. This is like a minor thing. I agree, we've gotten everything we're looking for in terms of shared uses and facilities named. I just don't know why we would strike that. I don't know why we agreed to do that from the last council meeting.
Yeah, my point is just simply that it's coming from the general fund, so it's public funds. So it just should be stated that this is where it's coming from. I think any other agreement we would have that would cost us, whatever, almost $800,000 a year, we would line item that. That's all. That's all I'm saying on it. I mean, the rest of it, you know, that's like that back and forth, tit for tat, they're doing this, we're doing this. I get that there was no need to necessarily go that itemized on it, I understand. But on those are actually checks being written by us, so I think that needs to be at least mentioned in there so that the constituents know where the money's going. That's all I'm asking for on that.
So, but if we add those two items in, would the school district want to add items in as well? Like,
No,
you're
I
opening-
think we would just take what's already been in the prior agendas, like that work's
Okay.
been done. So it would be just that snapshot of 2023, 2024. We had this exercise, where we met with the district and we kind of worked out who's doing what. We would just attach it, we can reattach it as exhibits.
Yep.
But with the understanding it is what it is, which is the result of a year of having meetings and
Right.
putting numbers down to costs.
I mean,
could do that
it's still
easily.
on here, right? Exhibit A, still and Exhibit B, those are still in the packet. But I mean, they're struck from this agreement, but I'm just saying, we don't have to do much digging. It's in tonight's.
It's very
report.
easy to attach
Okay,
them
yeah.
to the document if you'd like them to be.
Mayor,
Yeah.
Council, if I can interject, Mark, who is on Zoom, I think he's raising his hand virtually.
Hensley.
Mark. We can hear you, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Oh, thank you. I just want to briefly point out a couple of things. First, while the agreement, you know, there's language in here about 4 or 7 years, it can be terminated by either party at any time. So, which I think is an important point, given some of the conversation that's gone back and forth between the council and the school district. You know, I think the point of that is that there's good faith process here, and if some point the district isn't happy with how the scheduling's going or how things are working, or the city's not, you can go back to the table at any point in time. You're not, you know, this is not a 7-year agreement. It really is a, you know, it's so long as the parties are happy kind of agreement. Just want to make that clear. And then I just need to say this publicly, as far as the statement about the city being responsible for the the kids going back and forth to school. Well, that's a liability statement that I think that, you know, there's a lot of factors that go into that, and the school could be as liable as the city could be for that. So I'll leave it at that.
But at the end of the day, if you want to add back those pieces of information, I think it doesn't really affect the way the framework of the deal is going to be. And it's not just, you know, a 7-year deal, but every 6 months, the department heads are going to meet and make sure, hey, are we doing everything right? Did anything fall through the cracks? Is everyone getting the time they want? So there are built in here checks for the parties to meet on a regular basis and talk about how are we doing on allocating these fields.
So for a point of clarification, I just want to make sure I'm understanding this. I'm going to put we're going to.
Well, someone's got to make a motion,
Oh, right, okay.
which I can. I want to make sure we're
Sorry.
done talking about everything else.
Yeah, but it would be just a snapshot in time from 2023.
From 23, 24, okay.
Okay, before we even go to a motion, any further discussion? In general.
Yeah, can you go back to your last slide there? So a question.
Yeah, I have to, they have to
Just
take
got-
me
I have
off of the
Mark's head,
clerk.
so I- There we go.
There we go. This one?
Right, so
Yes.
this kind of came up last time, I think, Councilmember Mayor Pro Tem Pimentel brought it up, and I think it has to do with, like, I know what our field allocation policy is. You know, it's actually, number one is school district fields, is the school teams, right?
Well, city, then school.
City, school, but, and
Yes.
then it's like 501c3
Right.
or volunteer, and then it's club,
Yes.
right? So, and that's how we allocate all our fields.
Yes.
Is the school district's policy in here? Is it the same policy? I just haven't seen one. I don't know if it's there, if it's available, because my assumption would be that if we're entering into an agreement like this, sharing fields, that it would be the same policy. Is there like one general policy we're following now?
We have the policy that's adopted by the Youth Sports Council, and I think we adopt it annually, but I can't speak to if the district has a similar policy. I'm
Have
not
they
sure.
provided one?
That came up in the city school subcommittee meeting, and I thought the discussion was that they intended to follow a similar prioritization. Or did I remember that incorrectly? Last sentence, okay. Mark, you had a comment?
Was replaced by district was so that it was clear that the city would have priority after district programs, or things that are for the school district, rather than saying school programs. And so that's my understanding of why that word's being changed, is so that the city will have priority after district programs, which means things like the high school sports and those kind of things. So the city's priority would be after that, but not for groups and clubs and whatnot.
That makes
was
sense.
my
I get
understanding of why
that.
that change was made.
I think more I'm kind of what I'm making sure should be the same is after the school teams and
right.
the city thing.
Right.
Because the city programming is not AYSO, Little League, and Girls Softball. Those are not ours.
Correct. Those are
Those
user
would fall
groups.
into the user group 501c3s.
Correct.
I just want to make sure that our policies are the exact same on that last piece. That, I assume it is, but I haven't seen anything written. Where?
It could be clearer as far as.
It says respective policies. I just don't know what their stated policy is.
That's correct, those are not attached.
I believe their policy is approved by the school board.
But it should be, they have a standing policy, right?
I don't know
Do we
what
know
the
what it is?
policy is.
I believe they have a policy, I just know it's approved by the school board.
But do we know what it is?
I don't know what it is.
Okay. I just don't, I mean,
Do we
I
want to
think
ask?
this is cool. I mean, I love the fact that all these things were brought in. I mean, it's great. Don't get me wrong. But it will make less sense if we don't have the same, like, policy, like logically the same thing. This way we're programming everything the same way. You know, we talked about, we're prioritizing the kids in town and those types of things. I just want to make sure both sides are doing the same thing.
Right. Yeah, we didn't talk in great length about what their policy, I think we assumed it was similar to ours, but I didn't actually ask for a copy of it.
Well, we talked about scheduling and like the tiers.
Right.
And it seemed like, at least in the 2x2, we were all on the same page about, the nonprofits would be up there before the club kids. I don't know if there was a direct policy or even they have a statement on that, but the focus in our meetings was, how do we get these field spaces that the district has that aren't being used, how do we get them into our scheduling system so that our user groups can use them? And the idea is, okay, if we're not using for district purposes, then they'll be opened up to you, the city, and if the city doesn't use it, we can schedule it for and when we schedule those fields, it'll be to our policy. Does that make sense?
Yes, but is district purposes athletic purposes?
Or it could be graduation, there's a lot of
I mean,
different
those
things
are
the district
outliers,
can
but
do.
I mean, like, for example, like, if we shared with the school district this is what our current programming is, this is who we have on each field, just so that we're transparent with it, like, hey, this is what we have. And do we get that same thing in kind? Because bottom line is that we know that at the high school practice field, which is now in play, which is fantastic, by the way, that's not currently being used by any 501c3 teams, local teams. That's club that uses that field. And that's used like 5 days a week. So that's a significant amount of income. And I would find it hard to believe that they'd want to give all that up. That's all. It's fantastic the way it's written.
The information that we shared with each other is how many hours we use of each other's facility, but we didn't get into who else is on the field and how many hours. We didn't get into that level of detail.
Yeah, I
If that
understood it
answers
was
your questions.
Pop Warner is the one primarily using that high school practice field.
No,
I think they're a
it's beach
4-3.
soccer. That's $180 an hour, 5 days a week. So, I mean, it's significant. Honestly, I would do the same thing. I'm not saying what they're doing is bad. I'm just saying that if we're gonna enter into a joint use agreement, I just feel that we should have a similar or the same allocation policy, that's all.
Okay, well, this can come back to us in 6 months. We can approve this now and see how is it working, and if we need to make changes, we can. But we've already been a year into this about a joint use agreement, and I think we spent a lot of time, a lot of staff time's gone into it. So why don't we set this thing up and see how it goes, and if we need to come back and make an adjustment, we have the ability to do that.
In 6 months, you won't have AYSO season. So so all I want to ask is, I don't understand why there can't be transparency on what are you currently using the field for? And then now we'll know a year from now, has that changed? I mean, to me, I don't know, I don't get what we're trying to, like, what's the secret of information?
There's
Can I
no,
add something here?
please.
Again, I think the reason the word district was substituted into paragraph 3 rather than school was to get at the point that Councilmember.
Mark, can you
Drew was
speak up a
making.
little bit?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think the reason that in paragraph 3, the word district was substituted instead of school was to get at the point that Councilmember Drew's making. And so, you know, we can take this, and if council approves it, and make it clear to the district that the intent is that if it's not a district program, meaning high school sports, I mean, whatever is part of the school district, as opposed to Pop Warner football, that the expectation is that the city has the next level of priority. And if that wasn't the intent of changing this word, then I don't understand why it was changed, but that was my understanding. But if that turns out to be incorrect, we can bring this back to the council.
Are you talking about district purposes, that word?
Right, because I think that's what the issue is that Councilmember Drew's asking is, are we getting equal, is this being treated equally? That is, when we have city purposes, are we giving then the district the next line of availability, and the same thing working here is when the district's not using it for its purpose, is the city getting the next line of availability?
Yeah, I'm not sure
That-
that was the intent in our meetings. The idea was, if you have district field space that's not being used, how do we capture that into our scheduling system? How do we get that so that the city, instead of it just being vacant and not used for any purpose, how do we make sure that kids are out there using that field? And I think what you're trying to get at is, how do we use this agreement to try to, you know, change or modify the district's field setting policies? And I think that's two totally different conversations.
Well, if you're saying that we're looking at whatever the leftover space is on the fields, I'm quite certain there isn't any. Look, we could all go out there 5 days a week. I mean, I've been there. I know. We all know what's there. I mean, my daughter plays lacrosse for the high school team, and she's been practicing at times on Campus El Segundo. Why? In season. So all I'm saying is that let's just be transparent on the process. We would ask the same thing of anybody. So all I'm saying is, right now, there should be a list of who's on the high, like, they know who's on their fields right now. They've already allocated them out. So what is that? What does that
How
look
about,
like?
how about this, just to, in the spirit of moving this thing along, Councilman Drew, is that we, assuming this is the last item, that we move this forward and we ask staff to come back in 30 days with a review of who's using the facilities when.
I'll go along with what you're saying. If we want to sit there and say, I'll capitulate that we can see how this goes, right? We can agree to it, move it forward on this caveat. We do need to know what the current system looks like. Look, you need to know who's on those fields if we're going to be responsible for now potentially allocating space, right? And if we find out by next September, because by next September, AYSO will have to have field allocation again, right? If the same policy that we use is not being employed by the school district, are you willing to sit there and say, we're going to blow this agreement up?
Why would anyone want to blow this agreement up? Why?
If you're not
I
expending,
think-
so I'm trying to give you what you want, you got to come back with me though.
Can I restate, because I feel like we're losing a little bit of the verse. So the purpose last time of asking that these additional facilities be included in the sort of total community pool of fields was to make sure that the 7,000 user groups that we get beat up about having field space have field space. And I think to Councilmember Drew, I'm never trying to restate this, but I hope I don't butcher it, is it doesn't help us if we add capacity, but because the algorithm they use doesn't let those teams on it, because their algorithm, you know, doesn't prioritize 501c3s. So I think the case being that if we add this capacity, these look great on paper, but if no one can get access to them because they use a different scheduling priority list, then we've sort of gone in a circle. Now, for reasons that I can't explain, I think they have the same system as us, but I don't know where I pulled that from, and that could be the, you know, the great wishful thinking machine that exists in my head. Or it may not exist at all, right? It could be just be done by custom, because they've, you know, they've been using the same music groups forever. But it would, to Councilmember Giroux's point, be worth knowing, and if we have a system where, yeah, they've got a practice field we could use, but it's been rented already for the next 10 years, you know, it doesn't help us any. And then this agreement would have, you know, they would have given us sort of nothing on it. So I think it's a valid concern. I don't know what to do with that. I mean, do we have the moral courage to blow something up in a year if we're not getting on there?
Again,
I'm not sure we need to walk the dog on that one.
I just want to make a statement. So, you know, when we talk about the aquatic center, and when we were looking at the aquatic center when it first came online, and since then, we talk about, you know, making sure we were trying to cover as much cost as we can. And I'm sure the school district has that same approach, where they're constantly looking at their field space to ensure that they can optimize revenue, because they're not getting the money they need from the state of California. The other thing that to think about is when you go to schedule a field space, and you know, a lot of times, you know, not nonprofits, so like for-profit companies like beach soccer, they come to you in advance. So they'll come and make an agreement 7 months or a year in advance, and it's a structured deal. And you know, is AYSO coming? You can't just at the last minute say, oh, I need this field space. So maybe AYSO, if they're not as organized as, maybe they can be a bit better organized about time and what they need instead of schedules in advance, so that there could be a little more workability with that. But you can't, you know, I think I have a feeling, and is that sometimes a lot of the space is being already let out, and then all of a sudden AYSO comes and they're late to the game and they expect field space. So, with, you know, maybe we work with AYSO to come up with a structure that helps them and be a little more upfront in advance, so that the field space can be managed, you know, optimized. That's what I had heard, is that, you know, they negotiate these deals up front, and then all of a sudden, the 11th hour, AYSO comes and says, hey, I need this field space, and by then, the fields have already been let out. So it's just maybe reworking with AYSO to ensure that the field space can be managed a bit better.
Actually, that's exactly my point. My point is that if those deals are already in place with those clubs or whatever, we need to know about it now before we enter into this one. That's exactly my point. My point is
ultimately AYSO could play on Stevenson Field, and the high school could play their baseball games at the high school. I mean, there's some simple quid pro quos we could undo here. Like,
Hold on. Let's try and move the ball forward here. Okay, we're just arguing for the sake of arguing. I'm going to restate it as a motion. I would like to move approval with the add back of what the actual cost cash contributions are, not included in kind, for those provisions K and L, and also ask that the school district come back and that we share as well as a city what our uses of all the fields are planned for the year, as the best of our knowledge, within 30 days. Because as Mr. Hensley mentioned, this agreement can be undone with 30 days notice. No one wants to do that. We put so much effort into that. But to address people's concerns up here on the dais, I think we should know. Doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, have to be part of this agreement, but we should know what those field uses are with each different respective agency. But I would like to move that we move forward with this agreement as it's been amended, adding back provisions K and L, with the request that the school district and the city both share within 30 days their intended uses of the field space. And field use policy, thank you. I'll add that as well.
I just want to make, yeah, go ahead, Bert.
No, my question is, you're asking us to approve this and just have them come report back in 30 days, and then we'll know.
Yeah, just reporting back on what their intended uses are for the fields and field use policy. So, the best of our knowledge, we're gonna allow AYSO to be on this period, whatever they're thinking for the year, both sides, and what their field use policy is, so that we understand it better. Because there's a lot of Mayor Pimentel's right. I mean, we have heard this over and over in our roles, that people aren't getting the field space that they would like. And it's not just the school, it's the city as well. So this will help us understand the problem, the opportunity holistically, and it'll give each side 30 days to do it.
Mayor, So just on the 30 days, I think we don't have the second meeting in November is already, right? So it would be the first meeting in December, would that?
That works for me if it works for others up here. I don't even know if people will make a second on this motion, so.
So I guess my question would be, what are we actually approving then?
We're
If we're
approving the
approving the
agreement,
agreement-
we're approving the agreement knowing that this agreement, if, let's just say the information came back and we were so appalled by it, which I can't imagine would be the case, then we could kill the agreement. But we're just looking to understand the field use policies by both sides and what they intend to use the fields for and the different facilities. But move this thing forward, because this still has to go back, I think, to the school board, does it not?
Yes.
Yeah.
But by approving this, aren't we making it, there's no need to go back to the school board? All we're
No,
doing is
they-
asking for information.
They have to approve it. It's a contract with the school district. So once we approve it, they will approve it. But as has been said, if they come back in 30 or 45 days and there's something terrible there and you want to make a change to that agreement, we have the right to continue to make a change. The mayor's just saying, let's make this system start working. Let's have Kim and Ally work together to try to schedule and then report back and we'll see where the problems are. But let's get the ball rolling is what he's saying. We put a lot of work in this and I think we need to move forward. And if you want more information in 30, 45 days, the city can come back and we can keep tweaking, fine tuning it. It's not, this is not a done deal, but we need to approve something so that the kids can still use the field, so.
Could we do closer to 45 days, just as far as the timing of, I think, making sure they get it to the
Yes.
school board, making sure we see it, I send it
Yes.
over to Mark, just.
Okay, so any further discussion? Do we have a second on it? Oh,
Yes, Mayor, just a quick question on exhibits K and K, I believe
K and L.
K and L. They're a little, the way you've described now, you're looking for a little bit of a more modified
yeah,
schedule.
it's
So-
same
so ju-
provision,
just-
but do not include any of the in-kind or, I'm sorry, in-kind or opportunity
So
costs.
just
that was
the
listed
hard
before.
costs.
Hard costs.
Okay.
Dollars contributed.
And you'd
Okay.
like us to ask the district to revise their list in the similar fashion?
Yeah,
or-
city and school district
Okay.
both. So it's
Okay.
still allowing those provisions, putting those provisions
Okay.
back in with that change.
Got it, thank you.
Well, I don't know if we can approve it now, if you're gonna change. It's one thing if it's already in like the agenda and just, cut and paste these in there because they've already kind of had public hearing and people have looked at these addendas. If they're gonna change it, then I'm uncomfortable approving it because I don't know what the new exhibits will be. Yeah,
It's not an exhibit, it's provisions K and L.
But just leave them in there,
Right.
don't change them.
but attached to that is what we were discussing is.
Oh,
like,
you mean leave the dollar amount
Yeah.
as is?
leave those,
Just
that
leave it what it is.
snapshot, that work's already been done. Let's just attach it to the agreement.
I will amend my motion
All right, let me-
with that little, so let me just restate it. I would move that we approve this joint use agreement, adding back provisions K and L, and then asking both agencies to come back within 45 days with use of field use policies, well, actually facility use policies, because it's not just fields, as well as what they think their intended uses are going to be for the next 12 months or so.
I'll just need to talk to the district, make sure the timing's
That's just
fine,
a
but
motion,
yes.
so don't go,
Oh, sorry.
yeah, we're not even
I'll
done
second.
yet. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Okay.
5-0. Yay, progress.
Thank you.
Hold on one second, Madam Clerk. We had authorized the city manager to execute an amendment to the joint use agreement for media studio and equipment with the Nelson. That was part of the same agreement? We're good there, Mark? Okay, awesome, thank you.
There's two agreements. that you
It's a
approve
separate agreement.
Thank you.
But you don't need a separate motion, right?
With all one action, it was listed for one action.
Yeah, it was one action, so we're good. Mr. Ansley said we're good. Joaquin says we're good, right? Okay, great. All right, we are adjourned. We're going to closed session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.